Welcome to Dark Tales, where the line between reality and the unknown blurs. Join us as we explore 3 scary and haunting stories that will chill you to the core and keep you questioning what's real. Are you ready to face the darkness? Story number 1. The Disappearing Road. Jake was always one for shortcuts. Whether in his career, relationships, or driving, he believed in the efficiency of the quickest route. One late evening, after a tiring day at work, he decided to take a new shortcut home. It was a narrow, winding road that his GPS didn't recognize, but he was confident it would save him time. As Jake drove down the road, he noticed the surroundings becoming increasingly unfamiliar. The trees grew denser, their branches intertwining above to form a dark canopy. The moonlight barely penetrated the thick foliage, casting eerie shadows on the path ahead. His car's headlights seemed to be swallowed by the darkness, barely illuminating more than a few feet in front of him. His initial confidence waned as the road stretched on endlessly. He glanced at his phone. There was no signal. The GPS displayed only a blank screen. The sense of isolation deepened when he realized he hadn't seen another car or a single sign of life for miles. Just as his anxiety peaked, he saw a dim, flickering light in the distance. Hope sparked within him as he sped up, thinking it might be a house or a gas station. As he drew nearer, he saw it was an old, decrepit gas station. The flickering light came from a lone, rusty lantern hanging by the entrance. Jake pulled in, his relief palpable. He stepped out and called out, "Hello? Anyone here?" An elderly man emerged from the shadows, his face lined with years and worry. "You shouldn't be here," he said, his voice trembling. "This road is cursed." Jake laughed nervously, thinking it was a joke. "I just need directions back to the main road." The old man shook his head. "The road doesn't let you go once you're on it. Many have tried. None have succeeded." Jake dismissed the warning as the ramblings of an old man and got back into his car. He drove on, determined to find his way out. But the road kept stretching, and the surroundings grew more sinister. The trees seemed to close in on him, their branches like skeletal hands reaching out to grab him. Hours passed, and the gas gauge dipped dangerously low. Panic set in as he realized he was trapped. Every turn he took led him back to the same place. His headlights flickered, and the car sputtered to a halt, out of fuel. Desperate, Jake abandoned the car and began walking. The eerie silence was broken only by the sound of his footsteps and the occasional rustling in the bushes. Shadows moved just beyond his vision, and whispers floated on the wind, taunting him. Exhausted and terrified, Jake stumbled upon a small dilapidated cabin. He rushed inside, hoping to find refuge. The interior was cold and dark, with cobwebs hanging from every corner. A musty smell permeated the air. In the center of the room was an old, tattered journal. He opened it, and his blood ran cold as he read the first entry. "I am trapped. The road never ends. If you find this, know that there is no escape." The realization hit him like a punch to the gut. He was not the first to be ensnared by the cursed road, and he would not be the last. The shadows outside grew bolder, closing in on the cabin. Jake knew then that the old man was right. The road wouldn't let him go. As the whispers grew louder and the shadows pressed against the windows, Jake sat down, clutching the journal. He understood his fate. The road had claimed him, just as it had claimed all the others. The last thing he saw was the flickering light of the lantern in the distance, a cruel reminder of the hope that had led him here. Story number 2. The Creepy Clown. Lily loved clowns. Ever since she was a little girl, they fascinated her with their bright colors, funny faces, and silly antics. Her room was filled with clown-themed toys, posters, and trinkets. So, when her parents moved to a new house in a quiet suburb, Lily was thrilled to find an old, forgotten clown doll in the attic. The clown was different from her other toys. Its paint was chipped, and its clothes were worn, but its eyes sparkled with an uncanny realism. Lily named it Mr. Giggles and gave it a place of honor on her shelf. That night, as she drifted off to sleep, she could have sworn she heard soft, childlike laughter. Over the next few days, strange things began to happen. Lily would find Mr. Giggles in different positions than she had left him. Sometimes he would be sitting on her bed, other times on her desk, always with that fixed, unsettling grin. Her parents dismissed her concerns, attributing the movements to her imagination. One night, Lily woke up to a soft rustling sound. She glanced at the shelf where Mr. Giggles sat, but he was gone. Panic set in as she scanned the room. Her heart nearly stopped when she saw him at the foot of her bed, his eyes glinting in the darkness. Lily screamed and her parents rushed in, turning on the lights. They found her shaking and pointing at Mr. Giggles, now back on the shelf. Her father decided it was time to get rid of the doll. He tossed it into the trash bin outside, hoping that would end the nightmare. But the nightmare had only just begun. That night, Lily woke up to the same rustling sound. She looked around, and there he was, Mr. Giggles, sitting on her bed, closer than ever before. His painted smile seemed to widen, and his eyes locked onto hers. Lily tried to scream, but no sound came out. The clown slowly stood up, its limbs moving with unnatural fluidity. It climbed onto the bed, and Lily felt paralyzed with fear. Mr. Giggles leaned in close, his cold, porcelain face inches from hers. The next morning, Lily's parents found her bed empty. The window was open, and there was no sign of a struggle. They searched everywhere, but she was nowhere to be found. The only clue was Mr. Giggles, sitting on the windowsill, his grin wider than ever. The police were called, and a search party was formed, but Lily was never found. The house felt emptier without her laughter and joy. Her parents, devastated by the loss, moved away, leaving the house and its haunting memories behind. Years later, a new family moved into the house. They had a young daughter, about Lily's age. On their first night, the little girl found an old clown doll in the attic. She brought it down, excitedly showing her parents. They smiled, unaware of the doll's dark history. As they settled in for the night, the parents heard soft, childlike laughter coming from their daughter's room. They dismissed it as her playing with her new toy, but if they had looked closer, they would have seen Mr. Giggles sitting on the bed, his eyes sparkling with an uncanny realism, and his smile wider than ever. Story number 3, The Haunted Hotel Room. Mark was a seasoned traveler. His job as a sales representative took him to various towns and cities, often requiring overnight stays in different hotels. One rainy evening, he found himself in a remote town with only one option for accommodation, an old Victorian-style hotel that seemed to have been forgotten by time. The lobby was dimly lit, and the air was thick with the scent of old wood and mildew. An elderly man at the reception desk gave him a tired smile. "Welcome to the Rest Haven Inn," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "You'll be staying in room 13. Mark hesitated, recalling the superstition about the number, but brushed it off as nonsense. He took the tarnished key and made his way to the room. The long, narrow hallway was lined with faded floral wallpaper, and the dim light from flickering bulbs created an unsettling atmosphere. Room 13 was at the end of the corridor. As he inserted the key into the lock, a chill ran down his spine. The room was cold, despite the heater being on full blast. The furniture was antique, and a large, ornate mirror hung on the wall opposite the bed. Mark's reflection looked distorted, almost as if the mirror had a life of its own. As he unpacked, he noticed a peculiar stain on the carpet near the bed. It was dark, almost black, and seemed to have a faint metallic smell. Ignoring it, he settled in for the night, exhausted from his travels. Around midnight, he was jolted awake by a loud thud. Groggy, he looked around the room but saw nothing out of place. The silence was deafening, broken only by the occasional creak of the old building. Just as he was about to drift back to sleep, he heard a faint whisper, "Get out." Mark's heart raced as he sat up, scanning the room. The mirror seemed to shimmer in the darkness, and he could have sworn he saw a shadow move across it. He grabbed his phone to call the front desk, but there was no signal. The landline on the bedside table was dead. Determined to get some answers, Mark dressed quickly and made his way to the lobby. The old man at the reception was gone, replaced by a younger, nervous-looking clerk. Mark demanded to know if anyone else had reported strange occurrences in room 13. The clerk paled, glancing around as if afraid of being overheard. "Room 13 is cursed," he whispered. "Years ago, a guest died there under mysterious circumstances." Thank you for joining us tonight. If these stories intrigue you, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you never miss a tale that will haunt your thoughts. Until next time, sleep well.